Well, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Harry Brelsford from SMB Nation with the weekly webinar. So, if you're on the West Coast, it's the early afternoon, it's the lunch hour. I happen to be coming to you live from Orlando, Florida, at SeaWorld with the SolarWinds Empower MSP conference. So, it's a lot of fun seeing some old friends. A lot of Californians came out for this. Can't quite figure out how that happened. Some of the old SMBTN audience that many of you know and love from the Bay Area, LA, and Southern Cal, they all came out in force just to kind of give you a perspective. 400 attendees, single room show, and just started. With that said, a little bit of housekeeping. Be sure to use the questions feature to ask your questions, as always. Pretty interesting topic to say, and I'll get to that in a moment. In terms of the calendar and what's coming up, I'll be at Channel Pro next week on November 2nd in the New Jersey, New York area, actually staying a couple of days over in New York City for both business and pleasure. If you guys are around and want to get together like the old Bears Summit days, let me know. Let's get to the topic. Let's jump right in. Azure and cloud desktops. So we're with Brian and Rob with MyCloudIT. Before I let them self-introduce themselves, though, I do want to poke a little bit at Rob. That we we go back to the day at Microsoft, if you will, and so we've reconnected. Rob at the Inspire conference, formerly Microsoft WPC, now called Inspire. That was in Washington D.C. in July. It's a must-do if you've never done it. And Rob, before we got on the air, sir, and I'll give you the talking stick, but we were just talking about how all these former Microsoft users are popping up everywhere, man. Sir, what is your story? Please introduce yourself and Brian.
Hey, so I'm Rob Waggoner. I'm the Senior Solution Architect at MyCloudIT. I've always loved Azure, and when I was at Microsoft, it was only a part-time job. Coming to MyCloudIT, it's now my full-time job. I'm having a ball. And Harry, glad we could reconnect. I want to introduce Brian as well. So Brian's here with me. He's our VP of Business Development.
Hey guys, this is Brian Garut, and as Rob mentioned, my role is VP of Business Development. So I'll largely do the intro and then kick things over to Rob for a demo and more of the technical discussion for today's call.
Sure. Well, let's rock. Good to meet you, man after my own heart. I love business development. Sir, you have the talking stick.
Excellent. So I won't spend too much time walking through a deck here, but I wanted to kind of set the table for the discussion and the demo that we'll walk through for a technology that we really feel can transform your business. So by and large, I imagine we're talking to MSPs who work in the small to medium-sized business sector. That's not exclusively where we work, but it's a great niche for our platform called MyCloudIT. So before we get started, Jenny, did you want to run the quick poll to see, get a gauge from the audience, just first impressions of what we know?
Yep, it's on the screen. I'll go ahead and read the poll. Do you currently have any customer workloads in the Microsoft Azure cloud? So, folks, the answers are yes, no, not in Azure, but AWS, Google, or other. If you could please answer that. Rob, while they're answering that, or either of you, will you be at any upcoming shows quickly? Is there any show you'll be at in, I guess I'd say now, November, where people might see you?
We don't have anything scheduled for November, Harry, because you didn't tell us you want us to come along. So tell us where we need to be and we'll be there.
Fair enough. All right. Jenny, go ahead and close the poll. All right, and I'll read the results. We have yes coming in at 25%, no, suitably the color green for Greenfield, no at 67%, and not in Azure, but AWS, Google, or other at 8%. So there's the answer. Brian, do we have another poll? Jenny indicated there might be a couple questions. Forgive me.
Yeah, we just have one more question. And
Okay.
I thank everybody for filling these out. This really helps us kind of target the message to what you're here looking for.
Absolutely. So here we have, are you currently providing desktop as a service or VDI to your customers? The choices, folks, are yes, currently deploy on premises. Number 2, yes, currently deploy in the cloud or through a hosting partner.
Provider.
Yes. Provider, thank you. And and finally, no. Folks, if you could quickly answer that, and I'm out of wisecracks to fill the dead air time. Jenny, go ahead and capture the results. Here we go. We have.
Now, Harry, if you need wisecracks, I'm happy to help.
I know. Harry, I know.
Yeah. Okay.
If the walls could talk, we'd have to cut out their time. Let me tell you. Yes, deploy on premises, 26%. Yes, deploying cloud or hosting provider at 9, or no is 65%. There you go, Rob.
That helps a lot. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for your participation there. That does give us a pretty good idea of who we're talking to. So I'm going to kick things off with a quick overview of MyCloudIT. So MyCloudIT is an automation and management platform specifically for the Microsoft Cloud today that enables partners to deliver remote desktops and remote apps in the cloud. So with that, with our platform, we can help you achieve a 95% reduction in the actual setup time to where you don't have to go and build this from scratch. That's what we've automated. And then some of our scheduling and auto-scaling capabilities that we'll show you today can help you achieve a 30% cost reduction, which is going to make these solutions really affordable for your customers and also help these solutions be more profitable for you as the partner. And you can do all of this without going and hiring new engineers or going and becoming cloud experts per se. So really, our platform is helping to simplify the delivery, which then can help drive more profitability as a cloud partner for you guys. So we all know the benefits of cloud technology. So we've heard about it for years. We've seen kind of the maturation process. And so really, the things that we can be listening for as partners from our customers is when is the right time to make that move. So one way to think of this is from an infrastructure perspective, what are those hardware refresh times when your customers are going to be needing to invest, or you and your customers are going to be needing to invest in new hardware, so those big capital expenses. By and large, those are kind of the legacy project-based revenue model, right? And so what we're proposing is at these times is the perfect opportunity to have the discussion with your customers about how they can transform that capital expense, that big upfront cost, into more of a monthly recurring predictable operating expense. And then for you guys, what that means is you're taking this project-based revenue that happens, once every 3 years, for example, as a refresh cycle, to really making this a predictable monthly recurring profit that you can expect. So the second way to look at this is from an application perspective. So customers need access to their applications on a daily basis. They're starting to request access from anywhere, any device, right? So whether it's from mobile devices, their desktops, from kiosks, wherever, they want an access to their workspaces. And so some of these applications have already been SaaSified to where they're offered as a web service from a browser, but others, they haven't. And so those pesky applications are what are holding people back from moving to the cloud.
So funny example here, we're actually working with a partner who the ISV has built a VB6 application that they want to put in the cloud. They're using our platform to deliver this VB6 app. Think about how long ago did VB6 retire? But we're able to put it in this cloud-based form now so they can get more life out of that application. Think about those applications now that are weighing you down like a boat anchor and how we can help you move them to the cloud.
Hey, Rob, you're getting close. Rob, you're getting close to the yellow line, my friend. I flunked out of a Visual Basic series of classes at Bellevue Community College on a weekend, so watch it.
Thanks, Harry.
All right, please continue.
So it doesn't have to be an application that is maybe there's an application like QuickBooks is a great example. So many of the SMB customers that our partners serve need access to QuickBooks, or if they're a CPA, they want to give their customers access to QuickBooks. Well, QuickBooks has an online version, but it just so happens that the online version isn't quite as robust as what a lot of folks need. So QuickBooks is a great example of an application that we can take the desktop application, move it to the cloud with RDS, and deliver that as essentially a SaaS-based application. So I mentioned, what is it that your users are looking for? What are your customers looking for, right? So they're looking for anytime, anywhere access, a very secure environment, and they want everything at their fingertips, the same power that they get from their desktop or laptop, or if they're in need of another one, maybe something that's a little bit higher performing. So that's all something that we can deliver. And there's specific applications, which Rob likes to mention. Go ahead, Rob.
So, Harry, this isn't VB6, but some of our customers, our partners' customers, have to use things like AutoCAD. Think about how graphic intensive that is. And because of the new virtual machines that Azure offers, we actually have a couple partners. They don't know anything about Azure. They don't know anything about RDS. They know all about AutoCAD and what their customers need. And so they've used our platform to repackage AutoCAD, Revit specifically, into a per-hour consumption model for their customers. So think about how many users need AutoCAD for maybe a couple hours a day, or 10 or 12 hours a week. Now all of a sudden they can pay for that horsepower only when they need it. Are we doing better, Harry?
Yep, I'm back off the ledge. I am back off the ledge.
There you go. Thank you, man.
So one thing I want to touch on here is, when you're comparing options of maybe, say, a hosting provider that typically would host kind of a cloud model from their data center, you're still relying on their infrastructure SLAs, their security practices, their resiliency, right? When you move that to the public cloud, you're piggybacking off of the tens of billions of dollars that Microsoft, for example, is investing in research and development in new data centers that really provides you the capabilities, all of the security and resiliency built in to where you don't have to worry about it. We were on a phone call just a couple weeks ago, and there was a hosting partner that was down for 2 weeks. And if you're hosting in their data center, your customers are out for 2 weeks. They don't care. Your customers don't care where it's being hosted. All they know is that they don't have access to their environments for a total of 2 weeks. So when you put your faith in the public cloud, the resiliency, the security that Microsoft is investing in is all there for you. So really just wanted to highlight a customer. You can obviously see the quote that we were provided, but this specific customer needed a HIPAA compliant solution that provided an EMR application, so electronic medical records application for their healthcare clinics, and they wanted to provide that from their iPads. And so with our solution, this partner was able to deliver this solution in just a matter of hours, and they've been a long time really happy customer of ours. So when we think about what types of apps we can virtualize in the cloud, it really spans the full gamut. So we can virtualize anything from a very basic, just a great example from a couple days ago, somebody needed to virtualize Internet Explorer with Silverlight, IE11 with Silverlight, something very simple like that, to all the way to deploying a full desktop scenario where you have all of the applications, all of your Office applications, and your legacy line of business applications all in one place. And really the cloud allows you to provide from anything from the very light workloads all the way to heavy desktop usage. And when you do this traditionally, in the on-prem model or even in the hosting provider model, the hardware is required to run 24/7, especially if you're giving 24/7 access. So that hardware, whether it's actually supporting the workload in the overnight hours or not, you're still paying for the power and the cooling and the uptime and the DR scenarios, right? And it's all at basically paying 100% 24/7. Well, your application workloads are by and large just going to be the typical 9 to 5 workload. Well, when you move that into a pay-as-you-go, pay for what you use model in the public cloud, we can really help you match the infrastructure with the application workload usage. So that's what we see here. So now let's get to a little bit of the details around pricing. So the model for delivering remote desktops and remote applications with MyCloudIT in Azure is boiled down to 3 costs. So you have one, the MyCloudIT license, which gives you access to deploy, manage, and monitor from our dashboard. The second component is the RDS license. Since we're leveraging Microsoft Remote Desktop Services as a technology, we do have to require a license for that on a monthly basis for each user. And then the third component is really just the Azure infrastructure usage, the consumption that's, again, pay per hour. So without getting into all of the details, I just want to highlight the 2 things that you can take away from here. So we have an 8-user example and a 56-user example here. And in the 8-user example, we're able to whittle this cost down to $29 per user per month. So there's no minimum number of users required, and you can scale that all the way up to the hundreds or even potentially thousands. And so at the $8, it's a little bit more expensive. At 56 users, we can help implement the auto-scaling, and we can even drive down that cost all the way down to somewhere in the $21 range. So we can make this really cost-effective for your customers and leave a lot of room for margin and value-added services that you're going to bring to the table for your customers. So quickly, I want to highlight the benefits of the MyCloudIT platform. So really, we pride ourselves as an end-to-end RDS platform. So that's everything from onboarding the customers very easily to all the way through the life cycle to the actual billing processes. So what does that mean? Well, we can integrate with Azure AD to help in the onboarding into Azure subscriptions. We do offer Azure subscriptions ourselves, but we don't require you to leverage our Azure. You can bring your own Azure from whatever subscription model that you prefer. And then once you're in our dashboard, we're going to show you how you can deploy in under 2 hours. Then we're going to give you all of the management capabilities to manage that RDS environment from our dashboard rather than having to go into the Azure portal and manage this all natively. With the auto-scaling and the scheduling, that's where we're going to see the cost optimization. And then we're going to give you the ability to proactively monitor resources so that you can make adjustments on the fly to your environment. Lastly, the analytics that we provide can help with the optimization of the infrastructure. And then the ease of billing is really what ties everything together. So with that, I think it's a good time for me to hand it over to Rob Waggoner, and Rob will walk you through a demonstration of our dashboard.
Happy Thursday. So this is Rob again, and now what I'm showing you is our MyCloudIT dashboard. The first time you log into our dashboard, you log in by going to manage.mycloudit.com, and you'll log in with your Azure subscription credentials. So that's what connects your Azure subscription to our MyCloudIT portal. Once you're logged in, you'll be able in this lower right-hand corner to see the subscription or subscriptions that the portal is connected to. So we find partners do this a couple different ways. If they want a single pane of glass to see all their customer deployments, they can put each customer in their own subscription, connect them all together, and then we can see deployments from multiple subscriptions. Some partners like to have a single dashboard per customer. So then you would log into each dashboard separately and just see one customer at a time. We can manage either way, totally up to how you want to run your business. But from this quick dashboard, we can now quickly to start a new deployment, and I'll show you that in just a minute. A heads up on your deployments that currently exist. And then we have what we call our notifications tab. Think of the notifications tab like the event viewer. So you can always get to notifications right here on the left-hand side as well. But when you ask us to do something for you, like create a new deployment, you're going to spend 10 minutes telling us what you want. We'll now spend the next 90 minutes in an automated fashion and deploy what you asked us to deploy. And we'll keep track of that process all the way from beginning to end. So you can go through and see what we did if you want to learn more about Azure. But the thing I love about our platform is you can start selling Azure today, even if you've never spelled Azure correctly. You don't have to be an Azure expert to use our platform. Our platform takes all of that away and lets you leverage all your Windows Server skills that you've had, if you still have them. You can leverage those through our platform and through the customization process, or hand it all off to us if you want. We even offer support plans, so we can help you get your customers up and running faster. We can partner together to build that out. So the next thing I want to do is jump over to my deployment screen where we can see a full list of all the deployments I have built. And I've got a couple of them here, as you can see. I'm real creative in my naming of deployments, like West 2 is in the Azure West US 2 region. But we can kind of drill into these in a minute and show you what we've built. But the first thing I want to show you is how we built what we built. So you could go in and say, let's create a new deployment. The cool part here is you can create just a remote app delivery if all you want to do is remote app delivery. You could deliver a full remote desktop and remote app delivery, my favorite, or you could just create individual virtual machines. So the reason I'm bringing this up first is this gives you the ability to install a SQL server or SharePoint server or just a Windows server into an existing deployment or to create a new deployment. So say you have a customer that's on-prem and they want to move into the cloud. We actually have some good guidance. You could start here by saying, let's build a server in Azure. That means we'll automate the creation of the virtual network for you, the virtual machine, even the resource group. Then we have guidance on how you can connect that Azure-based virtual network to the on-premises firewall the customer's running, and then even how to take that Windows server you created and promote it to a domain controller. So now what we've done is made that customer's implementation a hybrid cloud, half on-prem, half in Azure. And then you can deploy our platform, RDS, into that cloud-based aspect of that as you slowly migrate that customer to the cloud. Nobody wants a flip the switch and go from on-prem to cloud. Most people want to try it out, move a little bit at a time. We can help you do that, piece of cake. So now what I could do is show you our remote desktops deployment. And of course, we don't have just a single architecture, but for our little customers, we have an architecture that's highly tuned. We've worked with the Windows Server RDS team. We've worked with the Azure team to make sure we're following best practices. And we basically built RDS in 2 virtual machines. This is great for our smaller customers, but the only way to scale this up to more users is to truly increase the size of this one virtual machine due to the RDS architecture. If you have a customer that needs to grow, we also have our standard RDS architecture, by far my favorite, where we have 2 servers up front, our gateway that provides a web front end, our management that provides a domain controller, connection broker capabilities, and then our session host farm that can scale up and down on demand for your users. One of our great technological breakthroughs is really around our AutoScaling capability. So as users log on, we can bring on more session hosts. At the end of the day, as users start logging off, we can take session hosts offline to save you cost.
Rob?
Now, go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, I got a question from one of the attendees. Is now a good time to just kind of interject questions as we go?
Harry, I'm here for you, however you want to do it.
All right. Okay, let me read it. Okay, if moving from on-prem to Azure, would you recommend a leased line, as most clients in the UK have slow FTTC internet connections? So it's Gareth, pardon me, Rob, Gareth McQuid out of the UK asking about leased lines and internet speed.
So from our perspective, we don't have a big bandwidth demand. Now, if we're going to set up a site-to-site VPN, Microsoft actually will show you how much bandwidth is available per tunnel size. They have different tunnel sizes. And so they have a requirement on bandwidth. Our bandwidth requirement, because it's just desktop delivery, is pretty small. And of course, we'd be happy to get into the details of their situation if they want to shoot us an email.
Okay, all right, and you'll get the full disclosure. You'll get the questions on the webinar report, so you can follow up with Gareth. Question I have, no question's a dumb question, but I'm just curious with the technology we're talking about today, and then earlier this week with the notion that lithium batteries, what is it? They have to be carry-on now. They don't want your laptop packed in your baggage that goes in the hull of the plane. It's always going back and forth, but bottom line, lithium batteries in airplanes are a problem, and that conversation came up this week. And I guess where my mind went was it seems like a traveling executive going to Dubai might have to travel laptopless and get to Dubai and either rent a laptop or get a desktop. And then desktop as a service, and some of the things we're talking about makes perfect sense, right? If you have this transport barrier for the actual machine to get to the other side, get a machine, and if I'm tracking, and Rob, this is why I'm kind of asking it not very well, but that executive could log on and do his magic. Does that make sense?
So Harry, you almost lost me there, but now I got it. And you're right.
Okay.
This is the cool part about our platform is we had a one of our developers actually from China, and so she would go home to China. So think about that. And she literally was able to connect back into our desktop as a service, see all of our IP. All of our IP never left the U.S., but she was able to work from another country. So we have scenarios like that all the time. And Brian uses a Mac. And so all of our Windows apps that we've invested in, well, he can't natively use them, but he uses our platform to do all of his work. So we even, of course, because this is RDS, there's an RDS client for the iPad, there's an RDS client for the Android, of course, there's one for the Mac. So even if this executive had to go to the hotel kiosk machines now, he can now connect into his full desktop and get access to his full corporate data, knowing there's a zero footprint on that local machine when he leaves.
Well, I was going to tell an off-color joke that Macs aren't allowed in the Seattle area, and this would be a perfect scenario for that. But we have real questions. The next question, Craig, I'll take both of these, then we'll get back to the presentation. So Craig Franklin asking, number one, how do you shut down RDS session host as load decreases if they still have users on them?
So there are a couple different ways we can do that from our platform, and I'll point those out in just a minute, but we can either schedule the shutdown, or we can schedule a graceful shutdown after all the users leave. So it really comes down to, do you want everybody out at 7 o'clock? Do you want to warn them? Or do you want just to shut off the session host after everybody logs out of it? Unfortunately, RDS does not give you the ability to migrate one user from one host to another. So let's say we have one user, 3 users, each logged into 3 separate hosts. all 3 hosts have to stay up. But as soon as one of those users logs out, then we can take their host offline.
Unless you wanted to include a policy to ask them to log out and log back in, and then the system would automatically log them back in to the appropriate session host.
Very good. You had a second question, Harry?
Yeah, from Craig, and it is closely related. And again, maybe you're going to get to this. The question is, do you handle the RDS configuration for closing disconnected, inactive sessions, etc.? And I, quite frankly, you've at least partially answered that, and I think you're headed there.
I'm headed there. So if we could table that one for a few minutes and let me show you a couple things. I want to show you a little bit more on the architecture quickly, and then I'm going to drill in and show you how to create a deployment and then how to manage an existing deployment. Fair?
Please continue. Yep, please continue.
You demand. Okay, so this architecture here is by far my most favorite architecture, and if you're thinking, I need a service level agreement for my customer, great. This architecture has a service level agreement by Azure, a 99.9% SLA, as long as these VMs are deployed on premium storage. The moral of the story, you can deliver a 99.9% SLA to your customer and keep costs low. Now, if your customer already has an on-premises domain or a domain controller in Azure, we can absolutely join that existing domain. If they're on-prem, we talk about making them hybrid cloud first because we have to have a domain controller in Azure to deploy. But if they're already in Azure and they already have a workload built, great. We can hop into their infrastructure and add RDS to it. So they can use that same sign-on experience. Then the last one here is highly available RDS. So this architecture, for any real good nerd, you're going to love this architecture. It's a minimum of 9 virtual machines, and it costs about $1,000 a month to run before you start adding users. The reason I bring this up is in our portal, this is marked as coming soon. We're doing you a favor. You can say thank you. The problem is we had too many customers come in here and try to build this and then scream over their Azure bill because it's $1,000 a month. We're using premium storage. We're using high-end virtual machines for the scale-out file server. So what we did was mark this as coming soon, and if you want this architecture, let's talk. Once I'm sure that's what you need and I'm helping you get what you need, we're happy to turn this on and give you a highly available deployment. But what I want to quickly do is walk through setting up standard RDS. This is where I say, give us 10 minutes, then go to lunch. Take a long lunch, about a 90-minute lunch. When you come back, you'll be able to go to work. First thing we do is ask you which Azure subscription you want to deploy into. This way, you can do 1 subscription per customer if you want. That makes all the accounting a lot easier. Or you could deploy everything to a single subscription if you just love doing all that bean counting yourself. When we deploy RDS, you have the luxury of either deploying a standard image from Azure, so it's a standard Windows Server 2016 or 2012 R2 server image, or you can pre-build what we call the golden image. So let's say you understand what the customer's standard desktop is. Office, QuickBooks, they use Chrome, Adobe Reader, think of some others. You can, before you build your deployment, create this golden image and pack all that software into it, then create your deployment for 30 users, 100 users, 250 users if you want, and know that all their desktops are identical because we have that scale-out model. For the sake of this, I'm just going to choose the standard Azure image, and then we get to do some fun things here, like name this deployment. So I could name this by my name, or you could name this by your customer. This is the name that shows up in our portal when you go to manage it. And then a public DNS name. So the public DNS name, we own the domain name autords.com. This is a subdomain off of that. We also fully support CNAME redirection. So if you want to redirect your customers' desktops to your own URL, all you need is a certificate, and we have the guidance on how to do that. The other thing, where do you want to deploy this? So Harry may want it on the West Coast because, well, that's Harry, right? He wants everything near and dear. But right now, Harry's in Florida, so does Harry want it in Florida? Right now, we only deploy to a single Azure region at a time in an automated fashion. If what Harry really wants is his infrastructure on the East and West Coast, we actually have guidance on how Harry can have that. But since Harry's sitting there on the East Coast, I'll just pick the East US Azure region. And I can even set the default time zone for Harry. Somewhere in here is the East time zone, right? So I'm not finding it, so I'm going to pick Central, Harry, Adapt, right? And then we have our ability to either create a new Active Directory domain, because RDS installs into an Active Directory domain, or we have the ability to integrate with an existing. So here I can just say, create a new one. If we're integrating into an existing domain, then this, of course, would be the existing domain name and an existing domain admin set of credentials. And then, because I said grab the Azure image, do we want the Windows 8 or the Windows 10 user experience? The cool part is, let's say you were using Azure Remote App and you got retired, and well, you still haven't figured out how to replace that and your customer still wants it, and you still have an image, we can use that image as well, even if it's like a Server 08 R2. I don't encourage that, but we've got customers that migrated Server 08 R2 images out of Azure Remote App. We took a lot of Azure Remote App customers. But I could bring this in, and then some of the cool stuff we do. How many real technical questions have we asked? I'm not going to start now. Let's say we have 15 users we're going to support. So tell us, 15 users. And if they're going to be full desktop users, you get to define the amount of storage that user begins with. Do you want to restrict them to a 4 gig user profile disk or up to a 24 gig user profile disk? Of course, they could be resized later if need be, but we see that 8 is usually adequate. We also give you the ability to enable premium storage or not. What we do is we look at this user count and we start doing some calculations for you. So with a 15 user count, we're saying we're going to build 4 VMs. We can support 15 users on 2 session hosts. By default, we put 4 users per virtual core. Got it. So 16 users can be supported on 2 session hosts. Now that's initial guidance. If you find that your users are demanding more resources from the applications they use, like if they live in the browser is a memory hog. Our portal gives you the ability to reduce the user count per session host or to crank up the horsepower of each session host. The other thing we give you right here is the ability to estimate costs. So that'll take just a minute, because what we're doing is we're looking at the 4 VMs you asked for. We're going out to the Azure region we chose, East US, asking that region
Rob?
how much they charge for VMs. Harry.
Rob, I never did enough of this in my career, but someone you've received a compliment, you two. Daryl Petit says, I have to leave soon. Will it be viewable? Yes, we still got the replay link. He says, thank you, very interested. So, Rob, it's a lost art, my friend, to receive compliments. Enjoy.
Thank you, Harry. So
There
what
you
you're seeing right here, piece of cake. So what you're seeing right here is we were able to estimate the costs. Now, I want you to view that cost as a high watermark. So in our estimation, this deployment is not going to cost more than $750 a month to run unless you add more resources to it. And the reason I say a high watermark is because since we have 2 session hosts, we can enable auto-scaling, and I'll bet you that even if you want 24/7 access, you're only going to need to run one of those session hosts 24/7. The other one probably is going to run less than 12 hours a day. And seeing that those session hosts are about $140 a month to run, there's $140 or $70 in that month you're probably going to save right off the top. We can also do other optimizations as well. But this is our simple provisioning wizard. We're done asking you technical questions. When you click next, we're going to ask you about billing information. We're a cloud company, and we typically bill with a credit card. If you need different terms, reach out. We're happy to talk about it. Step 3 in our provisioning process is a quick summary. Here's what we're going to build. All you have to do is click our service agreement and then submit, and we'll go build it. Now, like any good cooking show, where I just showed you how to bake a cake, now I'm going to pull a baked cake out of the oven. We have a deployment, and I'm real creative with my names. It's named East. And we have this details pane. I have a little warning here because one of the VMs was offline. So if any VMs are offline, you're just alerted. But from this details pane, I can see how to connect to the web access link. I'll show you that in just a minute. If you need RDS SALs for the RDS licensing, we're happy to resell those SALs at $6 per user a month. Or if you're a SPLA provider, you can bring your own. Or if the customer has RDS CALs with software assurance, they can bring those as well. We also right here publish the URL to the RD web page. I'll come back to that in a minute. But we give you the information you need right here. We also let you, right from here, you could start your whole deployment if it was off. You could reboot your whole deployment if it was being temperamental. You could turn it off, not that I think you have to manually come in every day and turn it off, and then you can delete it right here. We have automation around start and stop. We also give you the ability to drill right in and look at the virtual machines that you've built. So the RDS gateway, that was the green server in the architecture. The RDS management was that purple server. And then the session hosts, those were all those red servers that scale up and scale out as needed. So I'm leveraging the new D2V3 VM sizes. Those things are 20% less cost and a real screamer from a performance perspective. And our remote app delivery is typically done on a single core VM. But the cool part is if you don't like our sizes, great, change them. So right here we can go in and you can change that VM to any size Azure provides. It's as easy as saying, let's change that to 16 cores, click submit. It will then immediately take that VM offline, resize it, and bring it back up. So, of course, in our time, I'm not going to be able to cover all of these. I want to cover a couple things with you. Like in Remote App, we talked about AutoScaling. So I can move over. AutoScaling says, during the business day, which I've defined between 8 and 6:45, make sure there's always at least one session host running, but I can define a session threshold. So when my compute capacity reaches 51% utilization, I chose 51% for a reason. We have 6 users per VM or 8 users per VM. And so at the 6 user mark, when user 4 logs in, what I want Azure to do is spin up the next session host. I can support 6 users on a session host. So after number 4 logs in, start another session host startup because Azure can take up to 10 minutes to start a VM. So this gives us lead time to bring the next host up, but also gives you cost optimization. So then the question was, what about the end of the day? Beginning here at 6:45, we'll start taking session hosts offline. Your choice is, do you want to force people out and shut everything down at 6:45, all but one? Or do you want to just let natural attrition occur and say after 6:45, as people log out and session hosts become available, take them offline? So how do I manage the users, wrong screen, how do I manage the user session? What if a user chooses to walk away from their computer at the end of the day instead of signing out? What we have is an idle session limit and a disconnect session limit. So basically this says 2 hours after the user walks away, if they were the last user in that VM, we're going to log them out and take that VM offline. So we have a lot of granular controls here, like even application publishing. So I could very easily, this enumerates all the applications installed in the session host. You can go in and install an app in the session host or use a golden image and pre-build your hosts. And then if I want to publish Paint, it's as easy as saying Manage, clicking on Paint, scrolling down, and clicking Save Changes. That's it. 5 minutes later, Paint will be published. You can right here see the number of session host servers we have assigned to this collection. If you need to add more session host servers, click Add. We'll pull your image again and redeploy more versions of it. So this way, as your collection adds users, you can add more horsepower behind them. We also have the scheduler. So this one, to me, is what got my attention from the beginning. I can define this work schedule that says, start my workload at 7:15 in the morning, shut it down at 7:15 in the evening. Here are all the VMs I'm taking offline. What we've also done is the RDS management server is the domain controller and file server for user profile disks. So I've set that to start 15 minutes before everybody else and shut down 15 minutes after to make sure all the files get closed properly before this server goes offline. The other cool part is we'll give you projected cost. If we ran this 24/7, it costs about $1,000 a month. We're going to save almost half of that cost because we're taking it offline. We automate the install of Azure backups for file-based backup, and then we even give you the ability to monitor performance right from our portal. Because of course the user will say, it's slow, and we need to understand what slow means. So user, can you be a little more specific? What were you doing and when was it slow? And we can go in and monitor 2 at a time of up to 28 performance counters. So let's take a look at processor and disk. And now all of a sudden, those numbers will start popping up, and we can see how some of these spikes in the graph occur, drill into them, and find out if that's a bottleneck we need to address. We also integrate with Office 365. We'll install Azure AD Connect for you. And the last thing I want to share with you here is you can do all your user management right from our portal. Create new users, remove users, join and remove them from collections, all right here from our portal. So with that, I'm about 10 till, wanted to leave a little time for questions.
Okie dokie. Let me see what I got here. Let's see. We have Barry Green. Barry is asking, is Office 365 desktop apps installed by you or us? Are they click to run or disconnected versions? That's a
That is a great question. Hey, Harry, sometimes we're having a hard time hearing your questions, just a little feedback, but I got that one. So Office 365, we're happy to install it for you. Since we install it in a RDS environment, it has to be installed via shared computer activation. We can install that for you, happy to do that for free, or you can do it yourself as long as it's installed as shared computer activation. And of course, you need the Office Pro, Office 365 Pro Plus bits, or E3 or E5 SKU bits to be properly licensed. Next.
Okay. Are you ready for the next one? We have Peter Cole asking a question. And he is asking, who is responsible for doing the monthly OS updates?
So we don't automate those, and it really comes down to when would we reboot your computer. What we found a lot of MSPs doing is they already have their RMM tools. You can install your RMM tools into these VMs and do your normal patch cycle like you've done it. How's that?
Okay, well, boy, howdy. I'm certainly at the right location to extend that conversation. Folks, if you came in late, I'm at the Solar Winds and Power SP event in Orlando, Florida. It's a beautiful 70-some-odd degrees outside. Please use the questions feature to ask your questions. We have a few minutes left. Right now, we've cleared the deck. Barry Green says thank you. So, Rob, we'll see if we can bring in a few more questions. Maybe, folks, while you're typing that in, again, I will be November 2nd at the Channel Pro show in the New York City area. If you're around, I'm going to be there for several days. So, opportunity to do good old-fashioned beer summit with the old SBS game. We have another question rolled in, and it's from Peter Cole. Your thoughts on running Chrome on the RDS client? Is it such a memory hog? Could it be published as a remote app to improve performance? So,
Chrome, all of the browsers are hogs. You know, it's all just which is worse, you know, today than the others. but we absolutely, you know, my demo environment I've published, IE, Chrome, and even Firefox, they all publish great, run great. And that's where you just have to pay attention to the memory in that particular virtual machine. But the cool part is Azure gives us a lot of different VM sizes. By default, we build on the D2V2, which is 2 cores, 7 gig of RAM. Azure offers the D11V2, which is 2 cores, 14 gig of RAM. And so typically, you know, if you're going to build a deployment, I'm here for you, happy to do a call together, and we'll build your first deployment together. And I'll ask you a lot of details around that handful of questions we went through. And I'll ask you, what's your expected user behavior? Are you going to do a lot of browser work? If so, think about resizing to the D2V11. It's about a nickel more an hour than the D2V2. And I have a lot of partners that say, fine, I'm just going to start with that one. So that's how we really approach the browser question.
Okie dokie. Yeah, well, we've got some questions rolling in. Ray Coffin, Ray, yes, the presentation will be available for viewing after the webinar. Jenny gets the collateral and the replay link out in the thank you note. We have Gareth. By the way, Rob, Gareth has an offline question that he'd prefer to talk with you about privately. I'll get that to you. Then he has a public question. I can show what I have built, and we can discuss how to work in MyCloudIT. Oh, it is an extenuation of a conversation he'd like to have with you. Yeah, I am comfortable saying Gareth goes on to say I'm in the UK, so it's 9 p.m. here. So
Harry, if I can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
We work with customers across the pond all the time. Happy to. Garrett, the screen I'm showing right now, sales@mycloudit.com. Shoot the email there with the time frame that works for you. Your 9 p.m. at night. We keep our 9 a.m.s open because that's still during your business day, so 9 or 10 a.m. in our time. We're happy to set up a call with you. That's in your afternoon. And I'm happy to go through all of this and talk about all the details you want. So shoot us a note. We'd love to help.
Yeah, that raises a good question. So where are you both based? I believe you're on the East Coast. Is that correct?
Harry, we're both sitting in Carrollton, Texas, right over by DFW Airport right now. Yeah. So I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I chose 2 weeks to come into town here. So you got Brian and I in the same conference room. Typically, I'm talking to you from Nashville or somewhere else because I travel a bit. And being that this is a remote model, it doesn't really matter where I am, right? That's the cool part about our technology.
No, absolutely. And I've been working. In fact, I'll see your. I'll call him your CMO. I think VP of Marketing. But I'll see the gentleman in New York next week. We're intending
that's Matt.
to get together. Yeah, we're intending to get together and have a little bit of fun. And so, no, I hear you 3 times on working in disparate locations, which is in fact the part and parcel to the computer paradigm that you're promoting here. So fair enough. Let me go eyeball the screen again. And, Gareth says he's going to go ahead and email you. Folks, I'm going to do a last call for questions. There was a lot of material here to digest. You'll hear from MyCloudIT as a follow-up as well. You'll, of course, hear from Jenny. But Rob and I go way back. In particular, Brian and I are fast friends just today, by golly. But, Rob, you've landed very nicely, my friend. Congratulations on being associated with this company, and I know you're kind of bringing that community spirit forward.
Thank you, Harry. I'm having a ball, and I look forward to working with you and your team more. Shoot us a note. Happy to talk one-on-one and answer any of your questions.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. The deck is clear on questions. I get that, folks. Thank you very much for joining us. MyCloudIT with Brian and Rob. Thank you, Jenny, in the radio control room and doing the hard work. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you back again for the weekly webinar. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.